Thanks a lot for that introductions. With that, here's welcoming Kushagra and Dipesh once again on this panel, Nail It and Scale It. I guess that's something which every startup wants to do about doing the right thing, but also doing it in the right order so that you do not fail. Some of the biggest questions which startups look at is to figure out profitability, repeatability of the business, but also do it in a manner that you're not ramping up your overhead. Because in case you do that, you are actually having very little runway and you kind of burn out before you take off. And the runway getting slowed down or shortened doesn't get you take a good enough flight. So, with that, here's talking about how can we nail it and then scale it with two of our founders from Dimensionless and Cargo FL. So, my first question to both of you is around the fact that you have started getting into a space which is in the manufacturing and logistics space, trying to do something disruptive and trying to solve certain niche problems. So, what is that problem that you're trying to solve, and how are you doing it? And what are some of the disruptions that you're looking at in this industry as you're bringing across your solution to delight your customers? Divesh, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Irina, for the question. So we are Cargo FL, and Cargo FL is an operating system for logistics and supply chain technology. So the problem we are trying to solve is how we can make technology accessible, democratic to people in the logistics and supply chain space. Because if you look at the space, this is a highly unorganized, the least tech invasive space across the globe, right? Otherwise, if you look at banking, healthcare, everything is all tech enabled, and there are a lot of players into this space. But this is the space where people still use paper, Excel sheets to get most of their things done. So that's what the space is all about. Now, how we came into picture was in 2016 when Geo came in. Geo gave internet access, like enabled for almost every person across India. So almost all the truck drivers, they came into the platform, and like they started having access to internet. So on the phone they were checking YouTube and WhatsApp and all those things. So we rode on that particular wave. In 2017 we built a very simple cloud-based ERP for the transporters, and by 2018 we started evolving into the corporate space where we had Tata and all these big, so as of today we have 9+ corporate customers with us, and all these customers leverage our technology to digitize, automate, and optimize their logistics and supply chain functions. So that's the problem statement that we're trying to solve. How we can make logistics digital with a connected architecture connecting different stakeholders within the logistics space, which is the need of the hour at this point.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dipesh. Kushagra, how about you?
Right. Thanks, Irina, for welcoming us to the panel. And I think, as I mentioned, that when you talk about AI as a technology, it has been on the boom for the past 10, 12 years, right? Deep learning came back, and with edge computing around us, um, there are many problems which could be solved using AI today. Now, we at Dimensionless are a company which try and automate, uh, you know, multiple areas. One of the areas is the logistics space, wherein we have a couple of products. One primarily looks at the baggages. So all of us travel through, multiple security checkpoints, be it at stadiums or airports or metros and so on and so forth. And a lot of times, say if you think of an airport, we need to be there early at the airport because at the back end. The bags need to be checked in, that process needs to be taken care of, and this process is currently a manual process, right? So it's a comparatively slow process, takes a little more time, and it's not all that secure today, right? When I say not all that secure, it is dependent on humans for the security of those places, right? So the baggages, it might contain a threat item like a bomb or a gun or something, and it could just blast off, and there could be losses of lives and money as well. So we at Dimensionless understand that these processes are manual, they have to be automated, and we are using the power of AI today to automate the baggage inspection at airports, at metros, and so on and so on and so forth. So what our solution does is it kind of the existing X-ray baggage scanners which are present at these security checkpoints globally, they are not smart enough, right? We are bringing AI on top of the existing X-ray baggage scanners to automate them, to make them smart enough, and make the world a much much safer place. And same goes not just for the the passenger traffic. A lot of it is also for the cargo traffic, right? The logistics that you have, right? So we don't know. I mean, there was news recently where people were using the delivery network to send out drugs, to send out guns, to so those kind of illegal activities are also being carried out through the logistics channel. And we at Dimensionless understand that there are ways to using AI to solve that problem, and we are working hard to solve that problem. Our solutions are already deployed at few airports, a couple of metro stations, at some places in India, and we're also working with some of the organizations sitting abroad, uh, and partnering with them to kind of improve this. And within the logistics supply chain, there's another issue that we are solving, and just kind of highlight that as well. So you talk about e-commerce companies, right? And there are frauds happening through their e-commerce supply chain. There are counterfeit goods which are passing through their supply chain. Again, we use the combination of AI and X-ray, right? X-ray package scanners already present in the supply chain. We use that, again, automate that using AI, and then we try and identify any high value counterfeit item or a fraudulent item which is going to the customer, right? So a customer cannot say tomorrow that I got a soap, because we in the system are able to identify if a iPhone 13 is going, it is an iPhone 13 which is going to the customer and nothing else, right? So those kind of things which are at the root of the customer problem, we're trying to solve that. And we're already deployed across all the major warehouses in India for large e-commerce companies.
Perfect, perfect. No, wonderful to kind of hear those things. Dipesh, you talked about how data, the prevalence of what you can do became even more higher with the cost of the mobiles, the prevalence of things which can be done with a 5G network, and it going to many, many more rural, remote places than it could be. And
Yep.
Kushagra, you really summarized it well by saying the possibilities by which you can save time or bringing in a lot more efficiencies into the way things are getting managed. That brings me to the next question, which is around the tech of data and AI. So inferencing of AI at the edge and how the signals are coming across will really increase many folds. One of the studies I was reading across from Gartner was actually saying that it'll increase, say, by six folds from 5% that it is today, the AI capabilities at the edge, to 30% in by 2025. Now what that means is also that the amount of signals which will be coming, how do you harness the power of all the signals, turn it into a lot of meaningful insights that you can make across, make a decision making capability a lot more robust, and take timely real time information based decision making into the way you're doing things. So while there are many possibilities that we also look at, what data can bring in, whether it's speech, whether it's the power of conversions that you're doing, OpenAI or GPT-3 for natural language way of looking at things. What are some of these innovations that y'all are looking at into the solutions that y'all are bringing to the customers?
Right. So I
Kushagra?
think,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So right, you talked about the edge computing, right? So and we understand that edge computing and the power of AI is going to is already impacting all our lives, right? And it's going to impact is this many folds as we move forward, right? Because the processes need to be made better, and software I mean, the traditional softwares have brought us to a point where it is difficult to gain more efficiencies out of it, right? So real time decision making, being able to automate stuff is the way is the way ahead, and we believe that is going to happen, right? And to give you a quick example, working with Microsoft AI Innovate program, we are developing an application where think of somebody getting a call and sharing their confidential information, and getting duped of their hard earned money, right? I mean, and that's a problem that is prevalent globally everywhere, right? And there are different ways for which these scams happen. Now if somebody can use AI and tell the person while he's taking a decision to give out his confidential details, unknowingly. If somebody can just pat on the back and say, hey, you know what, this could be a scam, that that power that AI brings to to be able to make people aware of such things, and being able to take that decision and help you when you are really in need, that is something that AI, we believe, can do. And we are already building an application which is similar to this, and helping people save their hard-earned money. So I believe there'll be multiple layers to it. But yeah, one application, one use case I could talk about it. And the other use case could also be about the security of the solution, right? I mean, where and how, and how you could bring in and the edge computing to ensure that the data security still is there. But at the end of the day, it is bringing you the kind of results that you're looking for, with security in place.
Absolutely. I think that goes without saying how you're kind of taking care of security. Dipesh.
Yeah, so I mean, way back in 2010, I used to work on big data. At that time, the technologies of big data, and like people started saying way back around like 2009, 10, right? Data is a new oil, data is a new oil. And then big data came in, and then now big data has evolved into much more robust AI ML kind of engines at this point, where things are pre-made. Like within Microsoft, there are different algorithms which are preset. You can just configure them and you can execute them on the cloud. So that kind of granularity we have already come to, but we have to understand that data has got two perspectives. One is, if I look at the data, I should be able to send what can happen, so it has to be predictive. At the same time, it should also help me understand what went wrong, right? So both the sides of the coin is what we have to look at the data from. And the AI ML algorithms have like should be put to use in these two fashions, right? And this is exactly how I think when we talk to B2B businesses, B2B corporate, that's a conversation that we have with the VPs, when we sit across the table, right? The point what they want to understand is, if I have so much of data, what can I get out of it today, which can get into some ROI? That's number one. Number two, how can you help me predict failures, issues upfront as we scale? For example, we are working with a corporate 2 years back when we deployed our application there. They had only 150 stores across India, and today they have 330 plus stores. And in next 2 years, they are going to add. They said they are going to go to 2,000 plus stores. So when you walk into a mall, you will see those kind of stores. So the conversation is no longer about, yes, you are giving me an automation solution. Oh, I'm happy with that. No, it goes beyond. It says, what can go wrong when we set up these stores, when we expand across India, right? So that's the kind of a conversation, and that is not possible unless we look at data at a much more granular level. We understand what kind of algorithms are available and how we can use that data to get that kind of a predictive insight. That is number one. Number two is, today we have huge data lakes. Now they can be private data lakes, they can be public data lakes. For example, the public data, one of the public data lakes is GTFS, which belongs to Google actually, right? So that's one example, right? Now every organization wants to have their private data lake where all this data from different IoTs, different sources can be pooled in, and then we can write some logic to get them what they are looking for, right? So that's the second aspect which we have seen across corporates today. So yes, we have done a couple of use cases. One use case is, we call it Logi, Cargo FL Logi. Cargo FL Logi is a very beautiful chatbot. So instead of you going and punching in your shipment number and saying track, you can just pick up your phone, my VP supply chain. He can ask a question. Can you tell me where is the shipment? And that chatbot will go and do the like looking across the data, whatever it is, and it will give that information. So it's more of a conversational bot rather than someone typing it, right? So that's something which we have built using some ML algorithms in some place. Second is where when you are working with big warehouses like Flipkarts or Amazons, right? And you want to book space, so you want to make sure that when your truck arrives, that space is there, and your truck arrives there on time. So you want to predict those kind of failures up front. So are you like 70% on time, 80% on time, 90% on time? So those kind of things can be derived by looking at not only the past data but also the current state of that particular shipment. So it's a very beautiful. I think that's a beautiful space that's coming out, where the new modern cloud systems will have a lot of data, but how you use the data, how you capitalize on it is where the beauty comes in. And that's the conversation I personally believe we are going to have in conference rooms going forward, at least in boardrooms.
Absolutely. No, very beautifully summarized. That's a very holistic way of thinking about how you create the data culture in an organization.
Very nice. Yeah, I think that's the right word.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I will come to the next part of the conversation, which is to do with the Microsoft AI Innovate program that we have. And through this program, the entire endeavor has been how do we kind of offer the community to bring in the tech fabric basically from our end. So the capabilities which are around the core, the peripheral, the work that we are doing around the edge, and how do we kind of ensure that whatever is being thought through in the future looking direction, how do we get, say, our Azure engineering team to work very closely? Also, kind of ensure that there's a very robust GTM capability to ensure that you all are kind of having a good grip of the product market fit and seeing what else is kind of coming by. And lastly, through the founders hub, having an access to a good vibrant ecosystem of people who can kind of share with you what's going on and give you that critical sounding board as and when you all need it the most. Want to hear from you on your experience as to how has the Microsoft AI Innovate program been for you? Any call outs, any messages that you have for the community? Dipesh, you want to pick it up?
Yeah, so when we came into the program, right, so we were not exactly aware on how to leverage this particular program because we know that Microsoft has a lot of tools, and we also were looking for industry connections. We were also looking for VC connects, right? So that's how we came into this particular ecosystem, and we are lucky that we got selected as one of the top 8 startups, right, under manufacturing and logistics segment. So we have, as of today, like 9+ corporate customers, and when we scale within these corporate organizations, right, you need to get to speed, right? You cannot have certain implementations going on for long and long. So one of the expectations which was in my mind was how we can quickly move to Azure, number one, how we can take Azure capabilities put to use to build things faster, quicker, by having the right connections within the Azure team with senior management and with the technical team, right? So and we have achieved that, right? So we have done 3 use cases. Number one use case is about OCR. Now OCR sounds very simple. Yes, someone can just go to internet and take an OCR module and implement it. But when you go to the corporate space, there are a lot of corporate compliances that have to be handled. So that's where the Microsoft form recognizer was very useful because it's pre-built. There are many things which are already available as a configuration which you can use it. So that was case number one. Number two is where we wanted to use it for load optimization and route optimization, and we did that. So that is still being implemented. It's not complete, but we are using Azure for it, and we have a corporate customer for it. And number three is the Microsoft Meta, which we are trying to leverage. And I personally believe logistics and supply chain is the perfect ground to test Microsoft Meta. I have been talking to the senior management at Microsoft. We are looking forward to it, and we can do some wonderful applications once we get access to Microsoft Meta. So I think that's how we have leveraged it. But overall, this program has been very good. We got connected to senior teams like you, I mean Irina at Microsoft, right? And we also have now very well connected with your technical team, so we can always reach out to them. And number three is the set of products that we have got it through Microsoft is wonderful. So that's,
Wonderful.
yeah,
Great. And since you did touch upon Meta, I think for us, it's a lot to do with the extended reality and the world that we see, which incorporates everything augmented reality, virtual reality, say the 3D holographic avatars, video, and other means that we're seeing, say, how mesh is coming into play for any level of engagement enhancement or connected spaces in the world that you're talking about, whether it's retail, logistics, and many more. I think the overall possibilities are huge. And those are things that we'll absolutely want to work together. How
wonderful.
about you, Kushagra?
Right. So I think I mean, first thing is like, I would really like to thank Microsoft, that they kind of, consider us good enough to be a part of this program. We are privileged to be a part of this program. And, the past 3-4 months have been a great learning curve, right? The team, Jyotsna from the team, Sangeeta from the team have been helping us significantly, right? And the product that we are building, using the in the Microsoft AI Innovate program, the partner network and the team have been always there to ensure that we are able to come out of any challenges that we are facing, right? Other than that, I think when you're part of such a huge network, which is like a Microsoft, there's always something to gain, right? We're not losing out to anything. We're always, there's so much out there that even if we partner for 5 years, we'll keep learning and keep gaining so much more from you. um, there are so many different offerings within the Microsoft space, right? We were using Azure as an organization for quite some time, and we understand quite a bit of it. But having said that, there's still a lot of different offerings that we were not aware of, or we were not using. We're not exposed to them. Through this program, when we kind of connected with the tech team and the other people in the Microsoft network, we understood that there's so much more that we could do, right? And we kind of started leveraging that. That was a big plus for us. Other than that, as Dipesh also mentioned, the network that we have, the being able to talk to senior folks in the Microsoft community, that is a for that it's very difficult to get such kind of a platform, right, where I could just ping hi to Irina, and Irina is there to help me out. So that kind of thing is very difficult from for a startup, right, to be able to do that. And getting this exposure, having this platform allowed us to be able to leverage that, and so many other things, right? The founders network that we are able to work with, the go-to plan that you have, right? So build a product, understand that product, and then to be able to scale out using the Microsoft network. I think all of that has been fantastic. The learning has been amazing in the past four months, and we hope that we will keep on innovating together for the next decade or so.
Irina, you are on mute, I think.
Sorry.
Apologies. And fantastic to hear that. And I'm sure that we will continue to evolve and partner together for bringing many, many net new things across to our customers. Okay, with that, I come to a set of rapid fire questions to both of you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, my first question is, if you were not in a startup, where would you be? Dipesh?
Yeah, so mostly in the media segment, somewhere like a producer, being more into the creative segment, or maybe a R&D kind of a person, because that's my space. I have been into R&D before I started this. When I was with Accenture, I was part of their 14-member R&D team across India for long, and publishing white papers is my space, right? So more into technical R&D, number one, or maybe into the media space, more creative space where you can energize you put your energy into more creative kind of space.
Lovely. Kushagra?
I think I would have been in business consulting. That is one area where I worked earlier and kind of enjoyed that stint. So I believe I would have wanted to continue with that space.
What does innovation mean to you, and how do you do that without getting burnt out? Dipesh.
So from my perspective, innovation is about doing things in a different way. It need not be building a rocket or something like not every like if it's not that rocket science is innovation, right? It can be small improvements that you do in your life. From my perspective is innovation. For example, that's what I tell my team, right? If you are sending, let's say, a report to a client, right, and you send some report today, if you can improve that by maybe 1%, 2%, make it better, make it eye catchy, make it worth a while, where the customer would like to have a conversation with you. That is innovation, right? So innovation can be in as simple as a communication to as complicated as like a code that you write, which brings in a new flair altogether. So innovation has a bigger, broader perspective, but it is not limited to scientists. It's not limited to R&D people. It is for everyone on what they use to make changes on their day-to-day things, small things, which will give them, significant improvement in their life. I think there's a theory also on it. It's called law of marginal improvement. If you look at it, right? So there was this tennis player called Novak, if you know Novak, right?
Yes.
Novak, right? So he was, I think, number 3 or number 4 in the world at one point in time, and he went to his coach to understand what he can do improve. So I think his coach only changed the way he holds the bat by maybe like 2 or 3%. If he can change that particular hold, and he worked on that, and that marginal improvement made him number 1 in the world, right? So I think that's what I personally think innovation is all about.
Okay,
Great.
so my take on innovation would be a little different. So when I think of innovation, I think it's to be able to adapt, right, to a certain extent. Let's talk about education and industry, right? Everybody knows that it needs to change. It needs to change for better, right? We cannot always just rely on books all the time, and especially just the course book, which is what people back 20 years back we were doing, right? Uh, Now it has more to do with the hands-on, and so being able to change the way things are done today. It could be any domain, right? And it could be anybody. It could be a mother, just trying to change the way, maybe she was teaching her child, right? Or maybe then the way everybody teaches, if she's trying to teach it in a different way, which is even 2% more effective, that's innovation for me, right? And a beautiful example for that was the way everybody adopted this online education during the COVID, right? Uh, a completely paradigm shift, right? In the way the education was delivered today, right? So I think that's how I relate to innovation, rather than anything else.
Lovely, lovely. Very nice perspectives from both of you. Okay, that brings me to the last question. And I'll quote Harsh Mariwala from Harsh Realities. And he talks about creating large organizations, taking the less treaded routes, thinking afresh, renewing, building the team talent. And the thing he says is that you sometimes win, but you never lose. You always learn. When you look at your journey, give us one experience in which you possibly didn't expect things to happen the way it turned out. What was it and what was your learning? Dipesh?
Yeah, so one of my key learnings, from the last 4 years of my startup journey is that failing to plan is actually planning to fail. It's very important. So you have to look at things in a perspective where and understand. So whatever we are going to do, whatever customers we are going to acquire, whatever product we're going to work, right? So we are if my team has 40 people, right? Now for all their energies are now in my hands, right? So as a founder, it's the responsibility of the founder to make sure that we plan things properly so that their energies can be put into the right direction. It's like steering a ship, right? So if you don't know where you're heading, then maybe you will end up south or maybe you will end up north, but you may not end up east, like how Columbus started, right? So where exactly you want to head. I think as founders, one thing is very important is we have to plan. We should be able to look forward. We should be able to look through things, and that can only come when you sit with a whiteboard, plan things out, understand what is going on, what can go wrong, and where you can be. I think that planning aspect, I personally believe, is very important, and that's what I have learned over the last 4 years.
Lovely. Being a navigator. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, Kushagra.
Right. So I think when you talk about a startup and the learning phase of it, uh, one thing that we kind of knew early when we started was that it is important to say what you're not going to do, right? Because when you're working in startup, there will be situations where you might have to deviate from your original plans, and take up things that you should not be doing, because it will actually deteriorate you much more than the kind of benefits it can give, bring to you. So that's something we kind of knew before and took to quite some extent. But having said that, you're not uh, you always try to plan for the best, right? I mean, best isn't, you try and ensure that you try and work towards situations where you'll be able to steer the ship. But a lot of times things don't go to plan, right? I mean, your best plans also go for a toss, right? How do you pick yourself from there is something which is very, very important. And I think that is something that we have learned, that when there was no light at all at the end of the tunnel, we still believe that we will sail through and we will get to the next stage. And that has kept us going from 20 people to a 5 people team, and back up to a 40 people team. So So being resilient and being, ensuring that you are on track and working hard towards it, that will bring success sooner or later.
Perfect. Prioritization and looking beyond. Perfect answer. So, with that, bringing this conversation to an end. But thank you so much, Kushagra and Dipesh, for your lovely insights on this very, very pertinent topic. And thanks a lot to TiEcon as well for having this wonderful panel, and hope the audience enjoys it too. Thank you so much.
Really,
Yes.
thank you, Irina, for the and Dipesh as well for this wonderful opportunity. It's a
Thank you,
pleasure.
Irina. Thank you, Kushagra. Wonderful talking to you guys too.